everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Art Nouveau today. I'm your host, Leilani Joy, and on this episode, I'm going to be sharing my tools of the trade. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions from you guys about what materials I use, how they're used, and basically what they're for. So I thought I'd give you a little tour of my work studio here and show you guys what I use to create my art. Now, a little disclaimer before I get started. I am in no way advocating you going out and buying everything that I use. In fact, I'm doing quite the opposite. I really encourage you guys to go to an art store and just buy samples of things that seem interesting to you and experimenting and learning what materials work best for you. Everybody's a little bit different. This is what I like to use, and I have gone through a lot of trial and error and using different supplies in school and things like that, and sort of finding what I'm most comfortable with. So I'm not encouraging you guys to do exactly what I do, but I am encouraging you to experiment and figure out what you like to use. So anyway, with that said, let me show you what I've got over here. So welcome everyone to my little art studio here. I thought I'd get us started by sharing a favorite quote of mine by Andy Warhol, where he says, "Don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide whether it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. While they're deciding, make even more art." I just love that quote, and I have it hanging here in my studio. Kind of gets me motivated to get started. Okay, so let's talk about supplies. The first thing that I often get asked is what surface I use to paint on. And I paint on something called gesso artboard. These are made by the brand Speedball, and they can be ordered online. They're really kind of hard to come by in art stores, but basically it's a thin kind of wood panel that's already pre-gessoed for you to paint on. So these are ready for acrylic or oil paint right out of the packaging. These cannot be used with watercolor, so you will have to use watercolor paper for that. Next thing is something called fixative, and this is really great stuff, and a lot of people ask me what this is for. And basically it's for coating your drawing to prevent smudging. Can also be used with pastels, chalk, charcoal, and this is a type that's called workable fixative, but you can also use permanent fixative if you don't plan on working back into the drawing. This is available at most art stores. Make sure you use it in a well-ventilated area though, because it smells bad and it's not too good to breathe in. So that's what that is. Next we have something called matte medium, and this is very important stuff, and I use it a lot, and it is basically a medium that can be used with your acrylic paint. So oftentimes I will do a drawing and spray it with my workable fixative to keep it from smudging, and then put a layer of clear matte medium over it to protect it and make it suitable for painting on top of. And just a little hint about this, as these are available in jars or in bottles. However, I have found that the jars tend to get the lid glued on. So while these are a little bit more affordable, I figured out a trick that you just buy one bottle of the matte medium, and then you can buy this to refill your bottle, and you won't have so much trouble getting the lid off. These are a little bit easier to work with than the jars, even though the jars are cheaper. So matte medium is great stuff. You can also use it to dilute your acrylic paint and get translucent layers and some really nice effects using this stuff. It also comes in gloss medium if you like a more shiny texture. I tend to like a little bit more of a matte finish. I don't like so much shine on my paintings, so I do use matte medium, but gloss medium is also available. May I suggest visiting liquitex.com for great explanations of all their products, paints, and mediums and how they work. As for paints, primarily I also use Liquitex. These are the Liquitex Basics, and these are acrylic paints. Very affordable and great for beginners. However, I have found that the quality is not quite as good as some other paints. You'll find that if you use the basics, oftentimes you'll get a very translucent layer. You'll have to do several layers to get a thick opaque layer. So if you want something more opaque and thicker and not see-through, then I suggest using acrylic paint that's called Heavy Body. These are heavy body paints. They cost a little bit more, but Utrecht brand is very affordable. So this is a good alternative to the basics if you want something a little bit more thicker and opaque with your painting. A great tool to use along with your acrylic paints is rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol will actually remove and erode acrylic paint. So if you want some kind of interesting textures, you can use alcohol with acrylic paint and it will break down the acrylic. And it's great for actually cleaning up edges and removing it if you want. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but acrylic paint can be removed with alcohol. The next thing I want to talk about is when your acrylic painting is finished, you want to use something called a varnish. This is a Liquitex Soluvar matte varnish, which will give it a matte protective layer. And now this is not the same as fixative or acrylic mediums. Just so you know, this is the final step, and this is permanent unless you use a varnish remover and some other complicated chemicals. Anyways, this will need to dry for 3 to 5 days to seal your painting, and it'll put a nice protective layer on it. Also, you want to do this outside. It's extremely flammable and has harmful vapors and bad chemicals, so wear a mask, spray this outside to finish off your acrylic painting. Next thing is sometimes you'll often see me use watercolor paints, and watercolor paints come in very small tubes. Unfortunately, they are very expensive, but these do last a very long time. My brand, most of mine are Winsor Newton, which is a nice brand, and you want to use your paints in conjunction with a watercolor tray like this. So you can actually put your colors in these little slots here and use water to bring them back to life. So you can really stretch these paints very far and mix them in the center and actually store them with this lid and do mixing on the lid. So this is a really great thing for those of you that want to try watercolor paint. As for watercolor surfaces, in general, you'll need to use watercolor paper. There's probably some really good tutorials out there for stretching watercolor paper. Watercolor paper will wrinkle and bunch up if it is not stretched. So if you're a beginner, I suggest using something called a watercolor block, which is pre-stretched paper that you can actually peel off of the block and keep it from wrinkling. So look into that if you would like to experiment with watercolors. The next thing a lot of people want to know about is how I transfer my drawings onto my panels, and I use something called Seural transfer paper, and this stuff is very magical. All it is a graphite coated paper, as you can see here, and all you do is lay this down on your board or canvas, lay your drawing on top of it, and then you're going to trace your drawing with a pen or something that you can see your markings. And then when you lift this off of your canvas or board, you will see that your drawing has been transferred to the surface. And this stuff is, again, a little expensive, but lasts a very long time. I've only replaced my Seural transfer paper like once in like 4 years. So you can reuse these sheets over and over again, and it's really great stuff for anybody who likes to draw first and then transfer it to your board like I do. So I highly recommend picking up some of this stuff. Next thing is my brushes. A lot of people ask me what brushes I use, but in all honesty, I have sort of a hodgepodge of brushes. Really, you kind of have to just see what brushes work well for you. Watercolor brushes are different than acrylic brushes. I generally like a little bit of a softer brush. A lot of people who paint with acrylic like thicker, more hard bristle brushes, but I tend to like a little bit of a softer texture, especially because I paint on a smooth surface instead of canvas. So obviously there's a lot of different prices for brushes, and I do recommend getting kind of a mid-range price, because really cheap brushes tend to leave little hairs in your painting, and it's very annoying to try to get those out, and it's just not worth the hassle. So if you can spend a little more on these, I recommend it. And there's some great products for cleaning your brushes and taking care of your brushes, and as you can see, I'm a little bit abusive to mine, but I try to keep them nice. And you can probably get a lot better information about what brushes are for, what they're made out of, and all that stuff from an art store. I probably can't tell you everything there is to know about brushes. I usually just go, and if it feels good to me, then I buy it. So that's sort of how I pick out my brushes. Lastly, some stuff that I wanted to cover is I love to have some inspirational books in my studio. So this is a great book that inspires me called The Age of Feminine Drawing, and I would love to be in this book someday, but it's got some really cool art, and everything is feminine art, art inspired by women and fashion and some really cool stuff. There's Laura Lane, huge fan of her. So this is a great inspiration book that I have in my studio. Another one I think I showed you guys before, I just picked up recently, called The Fashion Illustrator by Bethany Morris, and this has some really cool tutorials and art examples and techniques, Photoshop tutorials, all kinds of really cool stuff in here to get you inspired. Another book I have is Peach, The Art of Peach Girl by Miyu Ueda. This is so cool. I love Peach Girl. I'm very inspired by this manga. I was a big fan of it, and this has some really great illustrations in here, and I'd love to just look through it sometimes to get some ideas and things like that. So that's always a good thing, to gather up some inspirational material for your studio. Finally, something some people have been asking me is a lot about pricing and how to charge for their illustrations and things like that. And this is really a must-have if you're really interested in becoming a professional artist. This is called the Graphic Arts Guild Handbook, Pricing and Ethical Guidelines. This is the 12th edition. I think there's a newer one now, and I should probably get one as well, and so it may not look like this. But basically this book has everything you need to know to be a professional artist, about trademarks, copyrights, the code of fair practice, what the going rate is for certain jobs, just really great stuff. A lot of stuff in the creative field, not just illustration. There's graphic design, animation, and some other great stuff. So I recommend picking one of these up if you would like to know some of the legal and technical aspects of being an artist. It's a little bit like reading a VCR manual. It's a little dry, but you can kind of skim through it and go to the important points. So this is a great thing to pick up. I recommend this. As for computer software, I use the Adobe Creative Suite 5 Design Premium. And this is loaded with great programs. It comes with Photoshop CS5, Illustrator, InDesign, Flash, Dreamweaver, Fireworks, and Adobe Acrobat. I was lucky enough to get this at a student rate when I was still a student. However, it is quite costly, so unless you're actually going to work at being a professional artist or illustrator, you might have to get something a little on the lighter side. But that is what I use for my art and design. So that is it for the studio. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and please let me know if you have any further questions, and hopefully I can answer those for you. So thank you guys for watching my episode today on Tools of the Trade. I hope you guys found it informative and helpful in your artistic journey. I have some very exciting news I want to share with you guys. I'm actually going to be moving out of my in-home studio into an actual shared artist studio with some other amazing artists in downtown. So I can't wait to show it to you guys. I'll show you some pics real quick. And I'm going to be working from there. It has gallery space, so hopefully if you're in the area you can come and visit me and see my work in progress and see my gallery space. I couldn't be more thrilled, and I'm going to be moving in the end of this month. So more news on that soon, and I'll give you guys a little video tour of it. So anyway, that's all for me now. I've got some fun little projects I'm working on that I'll be sharing soon, so I better get back to work on those. I will see all of you very soon. Thanks for watching.